These boots cost $260, but if I took away this book, this dust bag, and this fancy dancy box that come with it, they'd cost $250. So which one is a better deal? These are Doc Martens made in England boots, coming in at $260. They are $90 more than Doc Martens made in Thailand. They do use a rare Quilon leather, support your feet better, and are actually slimmer than the made in Thailand ones. Today we're going to break down every single difference between made in Thailand and made in England, down to the sparkly thread used on these pull tabs. And we're gonna try and assign a price to them, and I'll let you know why on my last Doc Martens video, I suggested you just stick with the cheaper ones. This video is sponsored by Squarespace.
I put on the made in England Doc Marten boots for this video, and I was like, what the heck? These don't fit at all. These are terrible. This is a totally different size than my regular ones. Turns out Doc Marten sent me the wrong size. Why can they charge $90? What goes into it? I'm gonna break everything down as much as I can. I will say, obviously, I don't know the exact prices. These are estimates, so just pretend that these numbers are just for fun and made up. And then I'll tell you just, if you should get these or not. On my last video about Doc Martens, I said really probably no one should get them, but there are some people that should. Gemma A is one of them. As always, if you see anything you like, check out the carrot link in my description. I'm doing a little wax jacket Olympics, so I reached out to Free Note Cloth, Bradley Mountain, Rogue Territory, a bunch of other brands, and Bradley Mountain gave me the works. They gave me the cabin jacket and also the 10-year anniversary edition of the Wilder backpack, which is probably the most insane backpack I've ever seen. So, carrot, link in bio. Doc Martens sells about 14 million pairs of boots a year. About 100,000 of those are made in England, so it's around 1%. Made in Thailand can automatically save some costs because they're doing 14 million pairs of them a year, so they have scale on their side. Made in England is still 100,000, that's a huge boot company, but it's not like made in Thailand. So that's a really big thing to consider with the cost going down, but also not that really big of a thing. The first category is definitely the smallest. It's just add-ons that you get when you buy a pair of made in England Doc Marten boots. Number one is this little book, just tells you how the boots are made in England. Number two is this little dust cover that you're supposed to put your boots in when you're not wearing them, I guess. And then the third is just kind of a beefed up shoe box. It's one of those shoe boxes that you would put old photos of your lover in instead of throw it away. You know how you can't throw away an iPhone box because it just feels like it's a really nice box? Same thing here. I printed out a care guide and a flasher for the prologue jacket for the Snail, and those are very expensive if you make them nice, but if you order over 100,000 of them, the price definitely goes down. So if I had to estimate, I would say the paper would be $1, the bag would be $2, the box would also be $2, and honestly I'm going higher than I actually think these prices are, just because if not, we're gonna be talking cents and I don't wanna be making any sense. And of course we'll cover the most controversial thing, the leather, but we're gonna wait to the end because there's a little bit of a discussion we have to have there, because Doc Martens aren't supposed to have an unfinished leather on them if you want a Doc Martens original boot. Okay, so breaking things down, first thing you'll notice is the pull tab is shiny now. That's crazy, using some metallic thread, Doc Martens, you crazy son of a... And then working our way up, the outsole is a heavier rubber, which is interesting because when people say vintage Doc Martens are better, like Doc Martens from the 90s, I don't think they're talking about the leather, because the leather holds up kind of regardless if you go made in Thailand or made in England. When people are wearing Doc Martens to absolute shreds, the sole is probably what wears out first. Then if we look at the midsole, thank you Rose Anvil for cutting these boots in half, you'll see it's a felted material and not a foam material. It's probably polyester still, but instead of foam that compresses over time, felt is already basically compressed, so it should just mold to your feet and stay the same for its entire life. How long does it take foam to compress when you're comparing it to felted material? I don't know. It could be days, it could be months, it could be years. I don't know if it's that big of a factor, to be honest, because I don't have enough information, but felted material definitely kind of survives forever, so you're better off there. The other thing that Rose Anvil showed us was that the welt material, the welt is this little strip that goes around the boot before the sole is attached, so that way you can pop a sole off and put another sole back on so your boots stay alive longer. It's better on made in England Doc Martens. I think if I had to guess, the actual material is different, because if you look at the welt on made in Thailand versus made in England, you'll see that the made in England ones are ribbed for your pleasure. Oh dear. I just got off the internet and it looks like you don't have a website. It's 2023, it's not that hard to make a website. Just go on to Squarespace and pick one of their thousands of themes, click on it, and then customize it however you want. And if you don't like it, just switch it over. What are you, a graphic designer? Boom, you need a website. You a fisherman like my dad? Boom, you need a website. Iron Snail? Boom, website. You wanna pick up a hot date on a Friday? You need a website. And where else should you go besides Squarespace? Nowhere. You should log off of AOL and go to bed. I mean, face it everyone. People thought the internet was gonna die in the 90s. And look at it now. now. Everybody's on the internet. So really, if someone Googles your name, the first thing that comes up should not be a social media profile. It should be a website showing off your talents, what you do for work, your resume, pictures, or whatever it may be. So thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. You can use my code, the Iron Snail, to save 10% off your first order of a website or domain. Now, this doesn't affect price, but these boots also have a different last, and if you don't know what a last is, think of the shape of a foot that a boot is molded around. So the last that makes these boots is thinner, slimmer, sleeker, sexier, ribbed for your pleasure, and that's about it. It's just a slimmer design and maybe a little bit smaller, but Doc Martens also may just send you the wrong size, so I don't even know. And now the most controversial topic, which would be the leather. There's a philosophy around Doc Martens. Doc Martens are not supposed to be a Red Wings or a Viberg or something like that. They're specifically Doc Martens. That's why when I say like, is $160, $170 a good deal for Doc Martens? Maybe not, maybe you can get a little bit cheaper, but it is kind of a good deal, and you're looking for Doc Martens. You're not looking for anything else, usually, if you're looking for Doc Martens, but that brings us to leather. And we're gonna talk about quill-on leather. The one thing that we truly don't know, by the way, is if this leather is any different, or if it's just treated different, or if they select a better piece of the hide for Made in England boots, or if they do nothing. When we're talking about the leather used on Made in England Doc Martens calls it quill-on leather, and that's really all they say. They say it's a premium leather, but I think their lack of describing why it's a premium leather kind of gives you all the information that you need. And also, quill-on refers to the texture on the outside of the boot. It's not super smooth like glass, it has fake pores basically stamped onto the leather, but it's still finished, so there's plastic on the outside, which is great if you want really, really water resistant boots, but a lot of people like to see the actual natural grain of the leather. If it's covered, you can get really bad leather and cover up the scars and dents on that leather with plastic. But that's the interesting thing about Doc Martens. I think the purpose of Doc Martens, or what a lot of people like about Doc Martens, is that they are heavily finished. And the Made in Thailand ones, if they get scratched, they'll stay black because they're black all the way through. The Made in England ones will turn brown where they're scratched and where that finish wears away, and you can fill it in with shoe polish or whatever, but I feel like a large amount of people want the drum-dyed Doc Martens, and that's how they used to do it in the 70s, so I don't really know their strategy for that, but I think it's just a bigger differentiation. So people are like, oh, these are nicer boots. FYI, that does say everyone welcome, so I do have permission to enter. I would say the upgraded leather, which this could just be the time it takes for someone to actually find the nicer parts of the leather, $10. Felted material, $2. Different rubber bottom, which is made in England in the actual factory, $5. Different pull tab, 50 cents. Different last, $0, but still slimmer, sleeker, sexier. Ribbed for your, and then the rubber welt being a better material, 50 cents, nothing crazy. Again, I'm really just, I guess I'm saying what it's worth to me, technically, because I'm making these numbers up out of my butt. Okay, so if you're good at math, you've probably added 18 plus 5 and found the answer to be 23, which means there are $67 left unaccounted for. You could stop there and say, no, it's not worth it, but we have to talk about location, and then we have to talk about the theory of getting a signed album, which kind of ties everything together a bit more. Manufacturing location plays a huge role in how much something costs, and just for a real life example, I had a manufacturer reach out to me and say, Michael, your denim Prologue jacket that you make in Canada, I can manufacture in my country for this price. And the price that he quoted me altogether was less than I pay just for the denim. So I'm assuming, and I'm pretty sure, there is a huge price difference between England and Thailand, especially because Thailand is making 14 million Doc Martens. It's all made by Doc Martens in England, and they have 50 employees in their Doc Marten headquarters, which is where they make those boots. Doc Martens is making things similarly to how they used to. It seems like they're using some old machines. They have someone actually selecting certain parts of the leather, which I don't think they do on more corrected leathers. So that takes time. The old machines take time. It costs more to pay the workers in England. So there's things like that. But the most important thing is they're making it the old way and showing some form of appreciation for the original craft of the Doc Martens. Everything being made in England and being slower and taking longer to make a pair of boots is why the cost goes up a lot. That is the big piece of pie that you have to eat if you want the Made in England boots. The interesting part is really who buys these? Who are they for? Who are they not for? And they are for our good friend, Gemma A. Gemma A says in her review, just do it. So happy. They feel so much more special. They are a work of art and so beautifully presented. If you love Doc Martens, do it. And that's what a lot of the reviews on the Made in England line says. It's just essentially like, I love these boots in the 80s. These are the same ones. Or I got these for my husband. He wore them growing up when I met him as a teenager. XYZ. That group That's the people that should buy Made in England Doc Martens. Big fans of the Doc Marten brand. So just from a purely robotic stance, are they worth the extra $90? I'd say probably not. Do I think they'll last longer? Maybe a smidge. Maybe they'll be a smidge more comfortable, a bit more supportive on your feet. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll last a tiny bit longer because the rubber's a little thicker. Maybe they won't. But if you're a huge fan of Doc Martens and you want something that's similar to how old Doc Martens were made, then you have to go Made in England, no question. LL Bean, they make their LL Bean boots in Maine. It costs them more, but it's such a core foundation of their brand that they need to do that. Could they be a little cheaper? Yeah, probably. Do I think the 1% of sales that they do per year versus the 14 million other pairs that they do is where they're ripping you off? Not really. I think it's for the fans. I think Made in England should be kind of how they used to be, heavier soles, lifetime guarantee, all that jazz. Then they'd be beyond worth it. But right now, you have to be a mega fan to get them. But anyways, that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. I'm taking next week off because I'm flying to Denmark to see my little bubbly boo, Taylor. So I'll see you later.